You're at the supermarket, pushing your cart down the aisles, trying to be responsible and buy healthy stuff. You grab that yogurt container, labeled natural, toss it in your cart, and feel good about yourself. You also pick up that whole grain bread that looks so innocent, so nutritious. You get home, prepare what you think is a balanced snack, eat it calmly, completely unaware that you've just put two of the biggest silent saboteurs of your mental health into your body. 2 or 3 hours later, there you are, feeling that familiar restlessness rising in your chest, your heart racing for no apparent reason, your mind spiraling into anxious thoughts you can't control. And you have no idea that those two seemingly harmless foods you ate are actually the real culprits behind the emotional roller coaster you're experiencing right now. I know you've already tried everything to manage your anxiety. You've looked up breathing techniques, tried meditation, experimented with exercise, maybe even sought professional help. And all of that matters, of course it does. But there's one crucial piece of this puzzle that almost nobody talks about, that most people completely ignore. And it could be undermining all your efforts without you even realizing it. I'm talking about your diet, not the obvious villains everyone already knows. I'm talking about two foods found on nearly every Brazilian family's table, marketed as healthy choices that you probably eat almost every day without suspecting a thing. The first of these silent saboteurs is present in over 80% of the processed products you find at the supermarket. It hides behind pretty names and persuasive marketing. It's in your natural yogurt, your whole grain bread, your no added sugar juice, your fitness granola bar. It's monosodium glutamate, and it's literally hacking your nervous system in ways you can't even imagine. Glutamate is an amino acid that acts as a neurotransmitter in your brain, and when you consume it artificially and in excess through processed foods, it overstimulates your neurons. It's like forcing your brain to run at maximum speed all the time, with no rest, no breaks. When you eat something high in monosodium glutamate, within 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on your body, you might start feeling symptoms nearly identical to an anxiety attack. Rapid heartbeat, restlessness, trouble focusing, irritability, and that awful feeling that something bad is about to happen. The worst part? Most people don't connect what they ate with how they're feeling because the symptoms take a little time to show up. You eat lunch at noon, and by 3 in the afternoon, you're anxious for no clear reason. You have that yogurt for breakfast, and by mid-afternoon, your nervous system is on high alert. Monosodium glutamate hides on ingredient labels under dozens of different names. You'll find it listed as flavor enhancer, yeast extract, hydrolyzed protein, malt extract, glutamic acid, and many others. The food industry knows exactly how to hide this ingredient because they know that if people truly understood what it does to your nervous system, they'd avoid any product containing it. But instead, they'd rather keep you hooked on the intense flavor this chemical delivers, even though they know it's contributing to your mental suffering. Tell me something. Have you ever pretended to be okay when you were falling apart inside? Type "I pretend to be okay" in the comments. Your honesty might save someone today. The second food silently sabotaging your mental health is even more surprising because it's something nearly everyone considers healthy and nutritious. I'm talking about dairy products, specifically casein, the main protein found in milk and all its derivatives. Cheeses, yogurt, cream cheese, butter, sweetened condensed milk, they all contain this protein that could be causing chronic inflammation in your body and directly affecting your mood and anxiety levels. Casein is a protein that's very hard to digest, and many people develop a sensitivity to it without even realizing it. Unlike lactose intolerance, which causes obvious digestive symptoms, casein sensitivity shows up in much subtler, sneakier ways. It causes low-grade inflammation in your body. An invisible, silent inflammation you don't feel on your skin, but that's happening internally and directly affecting how your brain functions. When there's inflammation in your body, your brain receives chemical signals that interpret this as a threat, and then it activates all those familiar alarm systems: anxiety, restlessness, a sense of imminent danger, trouble sleeping.
What makes casein even more problematic is that it can create a subtle chemical dependency. When it's digested, it releases compounds called casomorphins, which have a chemical structure similar to opioids. Yes, milk and its derivatives can cause a mild addiction, making you crave more and more dairy without realizing they're contributing to your anxiety problems. It's a perfect vicious cycle. You eat dairy, It causes inflammation and anxiety. You seek comfort in food, end up eating more dairy, and the cycle repeats endlessly. The link between inflammation and anxiety is one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience, yet it's still barely shared with the general public. When there's inflammation in your body, whether from food, stress, lack of sleep, or other factors, your brain interprets it as a signal that you're in danger. And what's the brain's natural response to a threat? Anxiety, high alert, fight or flight mode. It's a survival mechanism that served our ancestors well, but today it's constantly being triggered by our modern diet. You've probably noticed there's a big difference in how you feel on some days compared to others, even when your external circumstances are nearly identical. Some days you wake up calm, handle problems better, feel more emotionally balanced. Other days, for no apparent reason, you wake up anxious, get irritated by the smallest things, and feel like you're constantly on edge. Often, this difference is directly tied to what you ate in the previous days, especially if you consume too much monosodium glutamate or dairy. The good news is that when you remove these two food groups from your diet, or at least drastically reduce them, the results can be surprisingly fast. In many cases, people report significant improvement in anxiety symptoms within just 1 or 2 weeks. This doesn't mean your anxiety will disappear completely, since we know it's multifactorial and involves psychological, genetic, environmental, and many other aspects. But it does mean you can eliminate two major physical triggers that were intensifying your symptoms without your knowledge. When I talk to people about the connection between diet and anxiety, the initial reaction is almost always skepticism. And I completely understand. After all, for decades we've been conditioned to think of anxiety as purely psychological, something that can be fixed with therapy or medication. And those approaches are important. I'm not downplaying their value. But we're learning that mental health is far more complex than we thought. And what we put on our plates has a direct impact on what we feel in our minds and our hearts. To test this theory in your own life, you don't need to make radical changes overnight. Start by paying attention to the labels on the foods you eat. Begin reading the ingredients, looking for the substances I mentioned, monosodium glutamate and all its disguises, casein, and dairy in general. Try cutting back on these foods for 2 weeks and observe how you feel. Keep a simple journal, noting what you eat and how you feel throughout the day. You might be surprised by the connections you discover. A practical tip for replacing dairy is to try plant-based versions: almond milk, oat milk, coconut milk. At first, the taste might seem different, but your palate adjusts quickly, and you might discover new delicious flavors you never knew you liked. To avoid monosodium glutamate, the rule is simple. The more natural and less processed the food, the better. Fruits, vegetables, greens, fresh meats, eggs, real whole grains, nuts, seeds, foods that don't need a long list of ingredients because they are the ingredients. I know it might seem scary at first, especially if you're used to eating a lot of processed foods. The convenience of modern life has pushed us towards increasingly industrialized eating, and going back to basics might feel like a lot of work. But think of it this way. Every time you choose a more natural food, you're investing in your mental health. Every time you read a label and pick the option with fewer artificial ingredients, you're taking care of your nervous system. Every time you prepare a simple meal at home, you're taking control of your own healing. The gut-brain connection is another essential piece of this puzzle we need to understand. Your gut produces about 90% of the serotonin in your body, the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of well-being and calm. When you eat foods that irritate your gut, like monosodium glutamate and casein, you're literally sabotaging your body's natural serotonin production. It's like cutting off the supply of your own natural antidepressant.
That's why many people who struggle with anxiety also have digestive issues: gas, bloating, stomach discomfort, constipation or diarrhea, acid reflux. All of this could be linked to the same foods causing your anxiety symptoms. When you take care of your gut health, you're automatically taking care of your mental health. It's an integrated system.
Everything is connected in ways much deeper than traditional medicine used to acknowledge. Another important point is understanding that our bodies weren't designed to process the amount of artificial chemicals we consume today. Our digestive system and brain evolved over thousands of years eating natural foods, and suddenly, in recent decades, we've started flooding our bodies with substances they don't recognize. Monosodium glutamate, for example, was only commercially synthesized in the early 20th century. Casein has always been in milk, but we've never consumed dairy in the quantity and frequency we do today. It's like forcing an old operating system to run ultra-modern software. The system tries to work, but it becomes unstable, glitches, crashes, reboots on its own. That instability shows up as anxiety, depression, irritability, insomnia, poor concentration, and a range of other symptoms we often blame solely on psychological factors, without considering there might be a very real, physical basis behind it all. When you start cleaning up your diet and removing these irritants, it's common to go through an adjustment period that can last a few days or even 2 weeks. You might crave the foods you're avoiding, have mild headaches, or feel a bit more tired. This is normal and a sign your body is detoxifying and rebalancing itself. It's important not to give up during this initial phase, because the benefits usually start becoming clear right after this period. A strategy that works well is making these changes gradually, instead of cutting everything out at once. In the first week, focus on reducing the most obvious foods with monosodium glutamate. Snacks, instant seasonings, bouillon cubes, frozen ready meals. In the second week, start paying attention to dairy, and maybe cut your intake in half. In the third week, deepen the cleanup and start reading labels more carefully. This way, you're retraining your taste and habits without creating too much resistance. Support from family and friends can be crucial during this process. Explain to the people close to you what you're doing and why. They might not fully understand at first, especially if you've always been someone who ate everything without apparent issues. But when they start noticing the difference in your mood, energy, and ability to handle stress, they'll begin to support you, and might even get interested in making similar changes in their own diet. Remember that every body is unique, and what works for one person might not work exactly the same for another. Some people are more sensitive to monosodium glutamate, others to dairy, some to both. The key is to become a researcher of your own experience, paying attention to the signals your body sends and making adjustments based on what you observe. Besides removing problematic foods, it's equally important to include foods that nourish and calm your nervous system. Foods rich in magnesium, like dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, and Brazil nuts. Foods rich in omega-3s, like cold water fish, flax seeds, and chia seeds. Foods rich in tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, like bananas, oats, and sunflower seeds. Every meal can be an opportunity to calm your mind and nourish your nervous system. Hydration also plays a crucial role that many people underestimate. When you're even slightly dehydrated, your brain interprets it as stress and triggers the same alarm systems that cause anxiety. Drink plain water throughout the day and avoid sugary or heavily processed drinks. Sometimes what we interpret as hunger or anxiety is actually just disguised thirst. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find more strategies like this, always with care and based on what truly works. Hit like if it helped you in any way, and come with me on this journey. You don't have to face this alone. Recovering your mental health might be closer than you think, and it could start with simple choices you make in your kitchen every day. Your mind deserves this chance to heal, and you have the power to give it through mindful, loving eating.